I've got a super quick recipe for you here today. It's a cauliflower pizza crust, and you can also use it for quiche. I've washed and rinsed some cauliflower heads, and I'm using one cauliflower head, and it's about 6 cups chopped. I chopped it in my food processor, and I'm just going to add it here to the bowl. So adding it to the bowl before I add the eggs, the spices, and the herbs. So we'll get that all out, and that's about 6 cups, 1 large head of cauliflower. So it's looking a little bit like rice, and you don't want it to be pureed into mush. So from there, you're going to see the spices and what I'm using to bring up the taste, because just a plain cauliflower, well, that's not too exciting. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to add some herbs. Now you can either use a fresh herb or a dried herb. Dried, you use less than the actual fresh. Today I'm going to use 2 stalks of rosemary, and rosemary is that wonderful flavoring that gives to breads, and I want to make this seem like it's more of a bread crust as well. So I'm making these ahead, and I'm going to pop some of them into the freezer so that I have some next time I want them. They will be cooked, and I'll just pop it out when I need to. So I already have some rosemary in there. You can see a little bit of the color. Now when it comes down to pepper, I think red peppercorns are just pretty. So I do use a mixture of red and black peppercorns, and there's also a different flavor with them. But you can just use fresh ground peppercorns if that's what you have in your pantry. So I'm just going to take and put some cracked ground pepper in here, and I'm being really generous with this. I love pepper, so if you're a pepper fiend, just go crazy. But you want to put at least a 1/4 teaspoon to a 1/2 teaspoon so that you can actually see it. Now I'm scratch cooking here with you, but you can get the recipe from my blog, and I will post that for you just below. So I want to put a little bit more pepper in here so I can actually see it. It's so pretty when it's cooked. There you go. Now, when we're coming down to other flavorings, you can do things like Himalayan. That's a pretty pink salt. You can do a little bit of Dulce. There's a piece of green rosemary in there. Dulce is dark, and I ground that. I like using Dulce. It's great seasoning if you are on a salt reduced diet. This one is an herbal salt, so it's mixed herbs and sea salt, and I'm just going to put a little bit of that in too because I like variety. But if you just have plain sea salt, then that will work too. So just take about a teaspoon of plain sea salt, and like I said, you will have the recipe so that you can make it on your own. Now, the other things we're going to need are egg whites. Egg whites will help to bind and seal the cauliflower together, because by itself, it's just going to fall apart. So I'm just going to put this right into the cauliflower, and I have 6 egg whites for this quantity. Now, this quantity will make a large cookie sheet, or like I have, a couple of small cookie sheets, and I'll show you how to prepare those in a second. So I put the eggs in, but now I'm going to put another binder in. I'm going to put in some dairy-free cheese, and I've done a little bit because I didn't have a whole package of the cheese. I put in some slices as well. So that's going to help bind your cauliflower. Now, if you don't have any allergies or any food restrictions, then just use a regular mozzarella cheese. Use something with a little bit of zip. So you might want to use some pepper jack shreds. That's what I have in here in a non-dairy is pepper jack shreds and a little bit of Swiss. And this will help to bind all the cauliflower that's been grated up. So you can see it's beginning to stick together. That's what we want to do. And I am going to cook this down. So my next step is to actually prepare the sheets. How do I do that? Well, I'll show you two ways you can do it. I'm into simply. So what I've done is I have taken some coconut oil and I'm just putting it onto a piece of paper towel, and then I'm just going to grease the sheet. Even though it is a non-stick, it's really not fun to try to get that off the sheet. So that's one way. The other way is to take some parchment paper, not wax paper, but parchment paper, cut it at the corners, and then the cauliflower will be ready to just pop in. So that's what I'm going to do now, is I'm going to press some of the mixture into or onto the cookie sheet. This is a mini one because I'm just going to put it in my toaster oven, just my little oven that's sitting on the counter. You don't want to heat up the house too much, or if you're just doing a solo batch. But you can see that I like to make big batches. Big batches save you a lot of time, and I'll have more than one crust that I can use either for pizza. Now, when you're topping this, you can put on whatever you want. If you want to put some sauteed mushrooms with onions on there. If you want to make this into a quiche, that's super easy too. Now I'm going to bake this first. There you go. See, all I've done is just press it into the sheet, not too thick, but thick enough that it will hold together. And I've got a beautiful rosemary right there in the middle. Now, how pretty is that?